Melissa, welcome to the Retail Whore Podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm excited.
Okay, a little backstory so everyone can hear is that you reached out to us, you sent us an email that you had been in merchandising, you'd listened to the solo and you went into, I guess, your old retailer and you saw all the shit I talk about on the podcast. Tell everyone a little bit about you and then I want you to get into that story.
Okay, a little about me. I've been working retail about 16, 17 years. So I've kind of been in and out of it, different kind of style retailers, boutique retailers, corporate, a little bit of everything. I am actually born and raised in the Midwest, and I moved out to Los Angeles in 2014 after college. And I have been here ever since. And so that was an interesting journey too, going from retail in the Midwest to kind of retail out here, different clientele, different customers, different way people do things completely. um, but now after once COVID hit, my husband and I decided, we lived in Los Angeles, and we decided we wanted a little quieter life. So now I live in Oceanside, just a block from the beach, and have a more chill, relaxing life.
Dreamy. You said, okay, you've been in retail for 16 or 17. How old are you? Because you don't look like you. And you've been at Wet Seal, which that really how old were you there when you were there?
I was very young. Old. Yeah, no, I was young when I was there. I'm 35 this year.
You look like a total baby face.
Oh, thanks.
Anyone who's not watching this on YouTube. But so what, okay, I have to ask you about the Wet Seal because if you've heard this podcast, you know that's where I started.
Yep. Okay, Wet Seal. Wet Seal, I kind of didn't look for that job. I was kind of in a weird place. I was like in college, just kind of starting, new kind of city. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I stumbled upon someone was like, I was in the mall shopping and they were like, oh my gosh, you'd be so cute for our store. Like, come apply. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And I had worked retail before, so it wasn't my first retail job. But it was definitely one of the most interesting retail jobs I've ever had. I had not worked corporate retail before, so it was my first corporate retail position. And it was a big change just because the retail store I worked for before was very hands-off, very boutique, but multiple locations, but just run by one person. And each manager at each store kind of ran their store the way they wanted to run it. And, did their own merchandising and all that stuff. And we kind of purchased and bought for our clientele. So when I moved over to Wet Seal, all of that's kind of done for you. You're just given, the tools to run your store. So the biggest things I learned from there that I had never learned was a lot about merchandising. Like I used to just merchandise at my past boutique. I, did what I liked and I knew what my customers liked. And once I went into corporate retail Wet Seal, that was a big change for me because I didn't realize how they have everything literally printed out on a piece of paper. And they say, we want you to make this display look like this window to look like that to the T. And then I would have, management come in and they'd be like, okay, let's go through the paperwork. And if there was a missing bracelet, they were like, okay, there's a missing bracelet. Like, this is incorrect. So now you need to go back. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. But to be honest, at the time it was super stressful, but looking back at it, I was like, okay, it taught me really the importance of detail, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's just a freaking bracelet. Like, what's it matter? And they were like, no, it matters. This needs to be specifically this way. And I was like, okay, the small details matter. Maybe not specifically that way, but it's, what they wanted as a corporation and what they had their vision of. And that was new to me, but I did take a lot from that and kind of use that in, jobs going forward from there. Me, myself, not really a big corporate girl. Not that I don't like being told what to do or kind of managed in that aspect, but I do like a little freedom of creativity just because for myself, I'm in that store every single day. I know my customer. Yeah. And I know what they want. Like when corporates, sending me down a piece of paper saying, okay, what's trending right now is yellow. I want you to put yellow. Well, okay, yellow, sure. But my customers don't always like yellow. That's not what we do. They don't want that. And I had no choice and had to do it anyways. And sometimes with those, displays, you'd see up and downs in sales and they'd be like, okay, well, last month you had amazing sales. You sold 1 million sweaters. The tables did well. You sold everything off this. Like sweaters were it. Like our merchandising was awesome. Great. We sold a bunch of sweaters. And the next month, it'd be swimsuits or something. I'm like, okay, our customer's not looking for swimsuits. We don't live by a beach, like we don't sell that many. And then my sales would dip down, and they just would never really understand that. And kind of the communication with all that just was
I think
hard
that's
to
the
do.
plight of everybody in corporate retail.
Yeah, like they just don't want to listen. They're just kind of like, hey, like here's a piece of paper. Like this is what you're supposed to do. Like I don't
Well,
need your opinion on it.
I think also because they've bought into it, and
Yes.
their jobs are very connected to this shit
Yeah.
that they bought, is that it's going to have. So, I mean, I have not been shy about saying how I hate, okay, I take that back. I do not hate corporate retail. I personally do not like working in corporate retail. It just,
I agree. I feel like that's me too. Like boutique, small business, like that's where I'm at all the way. Like
yeah.
corporate, it's just not enough. I mean, and I have a lot of opinions, and I know that's not always what they like. They just want you to say
Ding,
A, B,
ding,
C, and D,
ding.
and then you say, okay, I'll do all of that.
That
And
is exactly where I got in trouble.
Yeah.
My issue with corporate was I've said it from in the past, like I'm straight shoot from the hip. Like
Mhm.
it's like I don't mince words. And even now, I mean, I still tend to deliver the message, and not like in corporate, you have to deliver the message and wrap it up nice.
Mhm.
And it's not like I'm an asshole, but it was like we would do these floor sets in Anthro, and it would be like we spent the entire week
Yeah.
setting it, and like the velocity items were out, and the amount of inventory, like the levels that you needed and the quantities that were supposed to be out, like it was like set when we left the Third Street Promenade on Friday night. And we would come in on Monday, and it was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like what? And it's like, okay, I will take it back. They did like they would do like $40,000 a day. But I mean, did no one close this? Like, did no
Yeah.
one's like nothing stocked? Like the whole store's trashed. And it'd come up in Monday morning meetings, and it'd be like, guys, what happened? And then it was always like, I can't be so mean. And it's like,
Yeah.
wasn't mean. That was just like, what happened is all
Yeah.
I'm asking. Like,
And I
so,
feel like at Wet Seal too, like, there was always like, okay, we have a cleaning list, and like we need to go through A, B, C, and D. You need to merchandise every night. You need to put things in, where they're supposed to be in place. But it's one of those things. It's like when it's corporate retail, there's not always someone when it's corporate retail, there's not always someone there to make sure that's happening. Like if management isn't doing it, no one else is going to make sure it happens.
yeah.
So I would do that. I'd come in and I'd be like, what is going on? There'd be like a table that's half empty. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure we have 8 more of these sweaters in the back. I'm like, why is no one doing that? And they're like, well, you're the merchandiser. That's what you do. And I'm like, this is not how that works. And then I feel like it doesn't look like anyone's Windexed or swept underneath this table in like weeks. And it always, there was never, corporate came in once a month, and like you always kind of knew when they came in. So like everyone made it look nice. It's like, but in reality, like it wasn't always looking nice like that. It was only that way because my boss knew, hey, corporate's coming in, like you need to do this. And I'm like, well, if everyone was doing their job when it comes to cleaning and restocking, like I wouldn't be running around like a chicken with my head cut off right now to make you look good.
Yeah, that was definitely, I mean, I think the merchandisers carry a big part of the load, but I've learned now, like I've said this in the past, it's like, because the same thing will come in, and it's like, what happened? And then I have to like step back, and maybe it's just because I'm old now, but it's like, all right, what sales did you guys do? I mean, maybe like we had like this insane weekend, and it was like, all right, well, that's where now I've learned, like, okay, back off, sister. Like they had a really busy weekend, like chill out. And then if it's the answer is no, like then it turns into like, again, this comes with age. I think now it's like, how do I turn this into a learning moment, a teaching moment of like, okay, so what happened? Like, were we short staffed? No.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't busy because I can see the numbers. No, we were. So what happened? Like because it's like, you said this and we'll get into your email, but it was like your store for retailers, whether you're corporate or your small boutique, what your store looks like is a complete extension of you as an owner or a manager or a corporate whole, like whatever, what your store looks like. And it's like, if everybody's not doing your job, to your point, like the store, like people notice the giant dust bunnies rolling
Mhm.
past the corner, or like hair. Okay, okay, I'm just gonna gross everyone out for a second, but if you have rolling racks or fixtures that have wheels, please look at the wheels, because there is hair in them, and it makes
Yeah.
me insane from rolling across the dusty floor with the dust. But I digress. But the wheels I needed to bring up. Like I
Yeah.
just
Oh, and then you try to push the cart and it doesn't wheel and they're like, this is broken. I'm like, no, there's just hair in the wheel.
like, oh my God. Okay, so you've been 16, 17 years in retail. Go through a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your history of retail.
Oh,
And
for sure. My first actual like retail job was at Joann Fabrics and I was in high school.
oh my God, I'll blow
And
my head off in that place.
I loved Joann Fabrics, which is actually one of the only corporate retail places I actually really enjoyed. I think it was just because the staff was really awesome and I got along with everybody really well.
How old
And
were you?
oh gosh, 16, I
Okay, love it.
think.
I used to ask that
Um,
question all the time, and I stopped asking it, and
yeah.
I need to go back to it, because I know all the hustlers all start jobs like 14, 15,
Oh
16.
yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I, it was like, well, I just got my car and I needed to pay the bill. So, but yeah, so I started there. I think within a year, like I started night managing. And then after that, I started doing our night visuals. So gosh, I was what, 17 that time, almost, yeah, 17, about ready to graduate high school. Um, gosh, yeah. And those were huge flips. And that's kind of where I really started to understand, because before that, I lived in a small town, so all we really had was food. So I worked at like a Subway and I worked at like my aunt and uncle's restaurant. So like that was like my actual first like, oh, we need to make this store look beautiful. We need to make it look good. And that's what we always did. Like right as the store closed, the first thing we did was literally wipe everything out of the area we needed and swept and mop the floor. Like
Oh,
that was one. And then you take everything off the shelves that you're going to do, you wipe everything down. And that I think is what kind of got me in that process, in how I started merchandising and then the way I merchandise myself was because of that. And I remember hating doing it and asking my boss, I was like, why do you have to do this every time? And she's like, because it's all about presentation. Like if it doesn't look
oh,
good and we don't start from the bottom, she's like, it's never going to be great. She goes, and then you wait 4 months and then you do it, it takes you the longer to do. She goes, if we do it every single time, it'll be great. I
I
was like,
do.
okay, great.
I still clean like that. I still,
Yeah.
and that sadly is half the time. Some of the stores, it's the only time they get cleaned, and it's
Yeah.
like I had a store it was a beauty store, and I said this on the solo. It was like, granted, it was the size of a supermarket. It was massive,
Yeah.
but they're like, no one ever cleaned that store, and you'd pick
Yeah.
something up and it was like your fingers were literally dirt. So like I would take everything down, same thing, clean the whole thing,
Yeah.
and like that's like the
Yeah.
best
And
like,
I honestly think if I never learned that from her, I might think about it a little bit different. But just the fact that like every single time that we did a floor set, that's exactly how we started
love that.
every single time. And I was like, okay, so in my career, that's what I do every single time. So yeah, so I worked there for quite a long time after high school, and then decided to go to college. So I moved to Indianapolis. I'm from Indiana. And started working at a Joann's there, and it was completely different.
Oh,
So I got transferred to a smaller store because it was like right across the street from where I were, or where I was going to college. And just the staff and the standards and everything was just so different. So I was going into not the exact same position just because I was in school, but they knew what I had come from. And everything was just done completely different. Like I was like, okay, I'm going to do the floor set. And I would start like, that's not how we do that. Like,
yeah.
why are you doing that? Like we pay someone to mop, what is it? Someone used to come in and do our floors, but they did it like once a month or like once every 2 months or something. And she's like, oh, well, we pay people to do that. You don't need to do it. And I was like, huh? Like just completely taken back. And I would do it anyways. And
Okay,
she just
that's my
kind of
next
would roll her
question.
eyes.
So after
Oh
a
yeah.
while, were you like, oh, whatever?
No, I totally did it
Good
anyway. She
girl.
goes, I guess just do whatever, because it was only me. It was a smaller store. So instead of like two or three of us doing it, I did it alone. So I was like, whatever, like she doesn't know what I'm doing. Like I'm gonna do it anyways. And that didn't last long just because I did not love the environment of that store specifically. So I left there and then I worked at this small boutique, like right beside a college campus. And it was kind of like a Forever 21, but owned by like one guy. And like all of our stores were at college campuses. So they're like $23 dresses, like
Yeah.
$15 shirts, like stuff that you go out in. So in like I'm in my, well, not even 21. Well, yeah, probably 2021 at that point. So I was like totally in that. And I started there. That place was great because that was my first boutique experience. And my manager was like, oh yeah, like we just kind of all work together and we do displays together. And you know, like this is our store. We want to treat it like our own store. And that's kind of where I learned from that location about treating a store like it's mine.
Mm.
And my boss ended up leaving. I took over for her within like a year. So I was running this whole store, and that's how I took it every single day. I was like, well, this is my store. So I want my store mopped every night. I want my shelves dusted every night. And like my staff knew that. And it was great because we were all kind of close in age, but it was good to be able to set those standards with them right away because they had already been there pretty much. I just had to push it a little bit further.
Yeah.
And I love that. And that environment was where I learned to love boutique retail. And the owner of the shop would call and like email like a lot, but there was never like any micromanaging. It was like, yeah, this is your store. Like make it look beautiful, sell a bunch of stuff. And like with merchandising for that in general, like especially because we're millennials. So most of the girls that were coming in were millennials as well. And we're very visual. So, you know, each week we would get new product in, and every single week we would completely re-merchandise the front because we were getting in so much product and turnover was so fast. We could merchandise every single week.
Yeah.
And we would. And
Yeah,
like window
as you should.
displays and like everything like that every single week. But I remember once I went on vacation for like a week and I came back and I could instantly tell they had not restocked the whole entire time I was gone. And I call them out on it and they're all like, how do you know this? I'm like, this is my store. Like I can tell. Like,
okay, so I want
visually see it.
everyone to take a second and hear exactly what she just said, because I think a lot of managers or owners, I think they micromanage to the point they don't give their employees the freedom where they do take it under the wing and they take care of it like their own. And you're a perfect example, which is why I love this conversation. Like you're a perfect example of when you give your employee the freedom to take care of something and treat it like their own, that they will treat it like their own, because obviously sales have to do with it. What it looks like has to do with it. And they want to be prideful in the job that they do. And I think that so many owners, sorry guys, so many owners will like step in and micromanage it. And it's like, I think that there's a whole group of people that want, I mean, in retail, not everybody, but I think there's, for the go-getters, there's people that want to take something and run with it. And it's like, man, if you have that, let them, because this is a perfect example of what is the outcome. And your education from Joann's, like, God, who knew? I
know, right? Of all places.
I love it. Like I that blows my mind because my Joann does not look like that at all.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, I loved working there, and I was in college, and like, you know, that atmosphere was great. And for them to let me at such a young age, like just take on all that responsibility, I took it on and I took it serious. And I'm not saying like every person would, but like I genuinely just had pride in my store and in my business. But and they trust me to do that. And like you said, like that goes a long way. And you know, I've worked other retail that I'm sure we'll get into, but they don't always do that. It's like, no, that's not right. It needs to be this. I'm like, okay, well, let's talk through it. Like there's no talking about it. It's A and B. And then you're just like, okay. And then it just kind of makes disgruntled employees a little bit. And then you just don't want to work as hard.
Oh yeah. Resentment. And then, I mean, it's like, I know I tend to run things with an iron fist. I hate saying that. With my stores, it's like, we're setting them up with standards from Anthropologie. We're here because this job was not being done, or you didn't think you were getting the results. And it's like, okay, we're going to instill these in.
Mhm.
Please make sure your employees respect the merchandising, because as we all know, merchandising is more fun than actually doing
Mhm.
cleaning and
Mhm.
stocking. I'd rather merchandise. And I literally, I've left stores and I've come back like a week later and the whole section's been redone. And it's like, what happened? Like, why is all this old new, like, where's all the new merchandise that was here? And like, oh, so and so want to re-merchandise it. Like, why? Like, one, the standards that we put in place aren't being done. Two, it's all new receipts is what was up front. And now you've brought the old stuffs back. It's like, and now you paid me twice because now I'm going to have to
Mhm.
put the display back together. Like that, the re-merchandise. So I now most of my stores are like, don't touch it.
But I think that's a big thing too. Like, it's not just, I think people forget, like, especially maybe other associates or maybe management or owners that don't understand how merchandising is. It's not just about making something look pretty. Like,
Yeah.
there's a reason to a lot of it. Like, okay, like we got this beautiful new lamp in. Like, why would we put it in the back? Like, let's put it in the front. Or like, oh, we have 500 of these towels that we can't push. Let's merchandise these a different way, put them in front to make someone want to buy them. And if they don't, maybe it's just, okay, let's mark it down, get rid of it. But yeah, I mean, and for me, I had to learn that the hard way too. Sometimes it's hard to let go and let other people have their ideas and their opinions when it comes to merchandising, because not that I feel like I know everything, but my rhyme and reason for it is usually there. And maybe they don't understand that, but I know what sells and I know why it's there. And I guess like a lot of people don't ask. They're just like, well, we don't like this. It's not that cute. We're going to put something else in the spot. And I'm like, well,
Yeah, I
that's
think that it's like, well, merchandising, let's face it, merchandising is very subjective. Like,
yeah,
you may love the merchandising at the Gap and you go to Anthropologie and you think it's like too busy and there's too much going on. It's very subjective, but
for
it
sure.
definitely, like, there are rhymes and reasons why merchandisers do things the way they do. And I think that, a good merchandiser, and I've said this in the past, like if your merchandisers aren't walking the floor when they come in, if they're not looking for, if they're not even walking the back room, like you need a new merchandiser. Like your merchandisers need to be walking the floor and looking at what is sold through, and listening to what is not working.
Yeah.
Merchandiser, like, it's no one's buying it, whatever. And these are the things we have to fix our next visits. And if they're not walking the stock room and asking what are new receipts or looking for new receipts, like there's things that we do, but it's like if your team is not listening to them, or like I've found, if I'm not explaining things,
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, oh, because Michelle said, it's like I've
Yeah.
learned, like I'm starting to like turn things into a learning opportunity, a teaching opportunity, versus like, because that is only going to make them understand, because they don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how would they know any of this? And it's like, what better opportunity for me to be able to teach somebody? But a lot of times I get so hung up in what I'm doing, because it's like I'm only there for a day
Mm-hmm.
and having to stop. But I realize if I make the time, it makes
Yeah.
my job much better.
It's true. And I feel like too, like when it comes to like training or teaching, like there are people or that want to learn and want to listen to what you have to say and like stand right beside you and do this merchandising. But then there's people that just want to do it because they don't want to do sales.
Yeah.
And they're like in this one, they're like, okay, well, that's the fun thing. Like you don't have to talk to people and sell stuff all day. You get to like move stuff around. But you figure that out like super quick, because you're like, okay, I've trained you, you've been working with me, I'll let you do the next set and like let you do this little table over here. And the first thing that they do is they don't clean a dang thing and they just start merchandising.
Yeah.
And it's like, you haven't walked the back, you haven't cleaned the floor, you haven't looked at your reports, you haven't seen what you're coming in, maybe what we're going to mark down in a week or so. Like it's all these things that you teach them that they just flies out of their head because all they want to do is make it look pretty. But when you find someone that's good, you take them and you're like, yes, please. And then they're like your sidekick.
I know. I so miss having, like, I've had some amazing interns, and it's like I so wish I had some, like, my favorite person to work with that I worked with for 6 years is Erin, that was at Burt's Pharmacy. And it was like being able to work side by side with somebody, and like you get in this sync where you're both doing this. You don't even, like, you almost don't have to talk to each other. Like, it's like, I'm going to do this over here. Okay, I'm going to do this. You both already know what it takes and what you need to do to get the ultimate result. But it's like Man, I miss that because it's a lonely job, man. Let me
Yeah.
tell you now, just going out there by myself because I don't have a team that's with me. So okay, so you were what's the and alternative apparel you were with as well. Let me tell you right now, I love that line. Like I used to
Yeah.
buy that line from my store when I had Fred Siegel, and I was super bitter when they stopped selling. Like I think they only wanted to sell their own stores, and they stopped
Mhm.
wholesaling to stores. Like I was so bitter. It's the
Oh my
most
gosh.
amazing line.
Before we get into that, I'm gonna put my bird back to bed because she's yelling. So give me
Uh,
just a second.
yes.
I'm sorry.
No, no.
Hold on just a second.
Catherine, make sure you clip this part out. I'm also going to ask her to take her bracelets off because I can hear that feedback in this. So I'll make sure I cover that as well. Before we start, what do you have a necklace on or bracelet? Because I can just hear the sound of.
Do what?
Do you have a bracelet or
Oh.
necklace on? Because I can.
Oh, I have a
hear.
bracelet. Yes.
Okay,
I'll take it off.
yeah. I just,
Okay.
I'm telling Catherine in the notes, like, you know, I'm gonna address the bracelets just so, because I'm like I'm looking at your hands and I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
see
I just
it.
took it off. Sorry about that. It has like a
Right.
dangle to it too, of course.
Yeah, it happens.
Uh,
This thing makes noise, so I realize if I don't move it, it's not as loud. So where were we? So I know.
Alternative apparel.
Okay, so alternative apparel, I am obsessed with that line. I was super bitter when they stopped selling to like retailers. And so do tell about the time there.
Yeah, that was an interesting time too. Like I said, I moved to Los Angeles in 2014, and I actually worked downtown as a pattern maker and a production assistant for a couple years. Because it was after graduating college.
For
so I was
alternative?
Before alternative
Okay.
apparel. Yeah. So I worked downtown. I was like patterning and like helping with all the production. Didn't love it.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, not what I thought it was. So I'm just going to go back to what I know and what I know I'm good at. So I started working at alternative apparel, the one on Larchmont Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started working there. God, I don't even know what year it was. 2016, I think, around there. And this was right before they closed that store. So I started working there, and there was 3 of us. Very, very empty store, but very, very beautiful store. Amazing product.
Which
Loved.
is weird because it's not Calvin Klein and it's like
Yeah.
single items and it's like, you know, $100 sweats. I mean, it's
Oh,
not
for
like
sure.
it's like a $400 dress that you leave it like minimally
Yeah.
merchandised.
So it's an interesting thing. So I pretty much was brought in because they knew they were going to close that store. So because I had so much retail experience, all the staff pretty much had already quit. So they just needed someone to round out the next like 5, 6, I think it was 6 months of that store and just run it. And then, you know, do all the, what I would say, liquidation on it. But we still had to keep it quiet that we were closing. So we still had to run the store like a normal store.
Oh my God.
It was very interesting, that's for sure. But the only thing, as soon as I got there, I could already instantly tell why the store didn't do well. So I walked in the store my first day there, and everything was in its spot, but it just seemed like there's not enough out on the sales floor. And I was like, okay, some stores do that where it's like, okay, we only need 3 of each item. We'll put everything else in the back. And then I go to the back and see how full the back stock room was. And I was like, okay, there's definitely a disconnect. So that was the very first thing I did. I was like, okay, well, let's completely restock the store. And I could not even tell you how many pieces of clothing we had to put back out on that sales floor.
How did your sales change? Because this is
Oh my God.
I have so many stores where I'm like, is this all you have? And they're like, no, we have more in the back. I'm like, let's put,
yeah.
What some retailers don't understand is like people buy, they're attracted to abundance. Like there's lots of it. Like as opposed to like, I know, and unless you're Calvin Klein or you're, you know, you're Missoni and you're like, you know, the single pieces, but by far and large, when you go into a store, like it should look full and yummy. And like you're drawn to it because there's so much, because I feel like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but if there's only a few out, it looks like your foot's halfway at the door and you're really not that into it. So we're not going to carry very much of it.
Oh yeah. The space, like to me, when I first walked in, just looked empty and it was a big space. And I was like, okay, maybe they started liquidating already, but they hadn't. They just didn't stock anything. So there was this three girls. So we're like, all right, like this is our game plan. So we all sat down. We're like, this is what we need to do. So we literally cleaned the store, re-merchandised everything, new window displays, and we had big giant barn doors and they always kept one barn door shut. And I was like, we need to completely open the doors. I go,
Thank
it's
you.
not inviting. I go, nothing about this is inviting. And then we always had a sale rack that was sat outside. I go, this isn't inviting either. I was like,
Okay, you tell me, because I know the answer to this, but you tell me why a sale rack always outside the door of a store, what that tells your customer.
to me, it tells your customer this is what our pride is. Like, this is what's important to us, this rack right here, because it's right in front of you. And it's also setting that customer up knowing, oh, well, there's a bunch of stuff on sale. So, like, you're setting up, okay, well, I don't need to pay full price if things go on sale so often. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. I'm just never been a sales rack out front kind of gal. And I don't even like running big sales in general, especially for boutique stuff. But yeah, I mean, there's people think of it a different way. Like, how do you think of it?
I mean, I think there's a time and a place for your rack to be outside, like 2 times a year. Like I came from Fred
Sidewalk
Siegel.
sale.
I mean,
Yeah.
I came from Fred Siegel. We had one sale once a year. I
Yeah.
mean, that was it. And then even when we were two sales, you weren't, it was your whole store is on sale. It wasn't like
Yeah. One
this
tiny
little
rack.
section. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like the whole store. But for my retailers now, it's like, all right, like we're gonna like spring and then going into fall,
Mhm.
throw your rack outside. But to have it out there all like I came from an account that I just came from, and it was like, this is your like how long has this been up here? And they're like, it's always been up here. I'm like, people are like walking through the front door
Mhm.
through sale, like this is what you're leading with,
Mhm.
like, hi, we're always on sale. Like
Yep.
that is where I'm like, okay, you need to move the sale. I mean, Anthropologie is brilliant in the sense of like Anthropologie goes public to private, and
Mhm.
once a year or whatever times a year, 4 times a year, I think it is, they have the big sale and they push it all up front. Like it's right in
Yeah.
the front door,
Yeah.
the signage is there. But for the rest of the year, sale is at the very back of the store, the most
Yeah.
private part. Like you go through the garden, you go through tabletop, you go
Yeah.
to home, and you end up in intimates. Well, sale is way back there too, because it's not what you want to lead with as a retailer.
Yeah.
Not
I just,
all
it
year
like kind
long.
of cheapens the store a little bit, you know?
100%.
And like sale people that buy from sale, like we need those people. We need those types of clients too that only buy from the sale rack. But yeah,
They
I
can
just think
find
that
it.
there's a time and a place and they always know where it is.
Yes. And that's why Anthro started, like, because obviously, like, you know, you should, like, in 30 days, if something is not 50% sold through, like, move it around a couple times, but by far and large, like, it's going on
Yeah.
sale. So obviously something that has to go somewhere. So
Yeah.
not saying not to, but it's like have it in the back of the
Yeah.
store, because those sale customers who are only buying sale will find it. Like
And
they
that was the first thing I did. I was like, this sale rack's got to go. And we moved it. And like, we ended up, I don't know, to me, that rack wasn't that important because obviously I knew the store was going to go out of business. So I was like, it will sell. I'm not worried about
yeah.
it at the moment. But I wanted to sell as much product as we could at full price before we started slashing things. So within that first couple months, I remember my district came in and he goes, what is with you guys? I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, your guys' sales are amazing. He goes, what? And they're like, now they're talking about maybe not even closing the store and like all this stuff. And I'm like, whoa, okay, hold on a second. And so I like walked him through it. I go, well, this is what we've done. You know, like the presentation we were doing before was just very closed off. No one would walk in our store. It wasn't inviting. So we've opened the doors. We've gotten rid of the sale rack. We made our windows look actually like pop and say, come in our store. And now people are actually coming in the store.
Was there, because obviously the direction to have minimal amounts of stock on the floor is coming from corporate. Was there pushback before your sales started to turn, or did the sales start to turn? They were like, oh shit, I guess we should have
Yeah, I
a while
think
ago.
our district manager would come in once a month. So he saw it happen. But I think when I sat down and talked to him and I said, this is what, and maybe it was part of like, okay, well, whatever, you guys are going to go out of business to do what you want. But I was like, this is why I want to do A, B, C, and D. And we walked through it. And he was literally like, everything you're saying is valid. He goes, absolutely. He's
That's
like,
a
so
good manager.
let's try it. He goes, let's try it and see what happens. And
That's
then
a
like
good
3 months
deal.
later, he was like, okay, I'm impressed. And like there was three of us, like I said, we all got super close and like we actually gave a shit about the store and gave a shit about the customers that came
Again,
in.
yeah,
Like,
again, it's and again, like you took pride and you
yeah,
took ownership of, and good on you, because I gotta say, anybody, I mean, not anybody, but most people going into a situation that they're there to quote manage,
mm.
basically babysit until the store is being closed.
Oh yeah,
90% of people, I'm pretty sure, would be like, fuck, whatever. It's like, I'm just gonna ride this out and like do
yeah.
whatever and like not give a fuck.
Oh yeah,
And you
like
did.
literally, and that's like, I think like going through retail, that's what I've always liked about retail. It's like, it's the connection with the location, the people that come in, not just your customers, but like the UPS guy or like the FedEx guy that's delivering your stuff, or like the girl that works next door at the sandwich shop. Like it's all that connection with all those people that makes a store good. And
Mhm.
like, visuals is a big thing because people, use their eyes to be like, okay, this looks inviting. And once I softened that look within that store, like people felt invited in and they wanted to come in and talk and like see what was going on. And hey, what's new? Like, oh, well, next week I'll throw it in the window. You'll see what's new.
Yeah, some stores, like there's I mean, it's the better store, the higher end stores, or it's, I forget what store it was that was on La Brea, and it was like, well, I'm not even gonna say the name because he's an a-hole and he will come after
I
me.
know exactly which one you're talking
He already
about.
has come after me once, but there is a thing where it's like, it's so uninviting, and it's so standoffish, and it's almost like, you're being judged when you walk in, like, oh,
Mhm.
what are you? And I remember my staff, like when I had my stores at Fred Siegel, like some of the kids after a while, like started to get kind of snotty. And it's like, I really literally had to step back and say, you guys, you have to understand, just on the simplest terms, the people that are coming in here shop make 10 times more than you and I.
Mhm.
And number two is that we are here to sell them. And I've always had the philosophy of, my clients are, and it's still my philosophy, my clients are my friends. And it's like, that is
Yeah.
what creates community. That's what creates a very solid customer base that will come back to you time and time again, because they
Yep.
know you, they trust you, they like you. I mean, it's like all of that. So for the stores that have like this, like look down your nose and like super judgy, and it's like,
Mhm.
that ain't doing your business any good, because I can tell you
No.
right now, most people are like, F that. And
Yeah.
like, I'm so glad that you,
Yeah, staffing is so important. And like, I've staffed a lot of stores and like sometimes this girl's going to be great or this guy's going to be awesome and right away, all right, this person's not going to be so great. But you kind of also work with what you have, and like as long as you're making the environment fun and like not just like, hey, we're selling, like let's go hard. And it's like there's always a time and a place for that, but there's still that niche of like, okay, when everyone comes in the door, like that person, you should talk to them like they're your friend.
yeah,
Like, hey, like I remember you from last week. How'd you like those shorts that you bought? Like, have you worn them a couple? Just like remembering the small things. It's like a big
100%.
deal.
Like, I mean, like by the end of my time at my stores, it's like, one of my guys was babysitting for Tom Hanks, another one, like, but
Yeah.
all of us knew, because I have this is like old school, like all of my team, I made them have a client book, and all of
Mm-hmm.
them had a page on each customer, their size, their dogs' names, their kids' names,
Yeah.
what everybody bought, like their wish list of items that they loved. And it was like, to be able to call them and say, hey, like, I just want to let you know, I know you were waiting for these shirts. We
Yeah.
got them in, I pulled them for you, and I've got 4 more. And it's like that kind of relationship with your
Mm-hmm.
customers. I think it's like, it doesn't exist anymore. I mean, and the stores that do it right. And then, and
Yeah.
that's like why I get on my soapbox about Amazon, because everyone's like, Amazon's taking over.
Yeah.
It's like, Amazon's not going to write you a thank you
Yeah.
letter. Amazon's not going to send
No.
you a birthday card or ask how your vacation
No.
was. Like,
Yeah.
God, like, stop with the Amazon.
It's like something that gives you that adrenaline rush when you walk in a store and they call you by name. And then
Yes.
you're like, I come here a lot, but these people like me. These are my
Yes.
friends. Like, this is my
Yes.
home.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love this
Small things,
conversation.
this is a little thing.
So where were you doing visuals before, when you sent me the email and you called out? And I so
Uh,
want to know what retailer you in, and I don't know if you can say it or not, but
um, I guess it's kind of I don't know if it's fresh. I'll say it. Okay. So my last retailer that I worked at was Brixton, and Brixton is a hat company.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Brixton is out of Oceanside. They started and founded in Oceanside. They just became
Oh,
corporate a couple
yes.
years
They
ago.
opened
Yeah.
one in Huntington Beach in
Yeah.
that new, okay.
Yeah. So they're opening stores up like crazy. So I literally we were the second store. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get into this job. I'm going to get in there and it's going to be corporate. And I know this, but it's starting from the ground up and they're just building retail stores. So like, maybe I'll get myself in there really early to kind of really help shape and like grow this company with like visuals, with product, with all my knowledge that I have. And so I was like, okay, cool. This is great. So we opened the store. There's nothing really in place. Like there's no procedures because this is like their second store. The first one was a smaller location. So they kind of did things a little different. But so I was like, okay, we'll start from the ground up. Here we go. Like, there was 3 of us that were interested in doing visuals. So I took the 2 on and I was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is our standards. We were building our own standards. So this is how we're going to fold t-shirts. This is how many times a week we're going to move things, or this is how many, putting all those into place. So the first thing, our store was ready to bring merchandise in to start merchandising. And the first thing I wanted to do was mop, clean, and dust and all of that. And nobody wanted to help me. Like,
What
nobody.
city were you in?
In Oceanside here.
Okay, well,
yeah. So
pretty sure Manhattan Beach. Sorry, Manhattan Beach. I'm pretty sure most of the kids that live here are not, which is why there's no busboys that are like white kids from Manhattan Beach.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But like that was the thing. And I was like, okay, like you guys don't understand. Like you're helping me. Like you're gonna help me. But it was just like they didn't get it. And I was like, this is where we need to start. So we did that. We cleaned everything down and we started fully merchandising. And I set standards. We have a big garage door that opens so the sun comes in. Sun damage was a huge problem because we had a giant table right in front. So as soon as I figured that out, I was talking to corporate. I was like, hey, like we got to figure something out. This sun's going to ruin clothes. So they weren't like a lot of help. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just figure it out and do it on my own. So every week we would have to fully take everything off the front half of the store and completely re-merchandise it. And sometimes once a week wasn't even enough. Like the sun is just literally coming from the ocean into that store.
So not to cut you off right now, but because sun damage is a huge, and I've experienced it with windows, but not a whole table and it turning that fast. So corporate, if they're not, I guess listening but when they saw the amount of damages, is that not an issue? That's a lot of money when you are.
I had tubs like I think it was the first month. And I didn't realize how it would rapidly happen to certain types of garments faster than others. So it was me trying to figure out, already knowing about sun damage, but not realizing how bad the sun was here. And so I was like, okay, so I had tubs full of damaged product and I couldn't do anything with it. And no one really cared about it. So I just put it all aside because I'm not going to sell damaged merchandise. It just looks bad. And then eventually got someone to write off on it. And we, damaged it out and I don't know, donated it or what they did with it. But huge problem. And like, so eventually I asked for help again because I was like, this problem is just, I can't control it. The summer months are here. And like, I'm saying every 3 days, I can't swap product out. Like, I just can't do it. There's not enough time in the day. And so we got umbrellas that sit out in the front of our store that we'd have to put up every day at, I think, 11:30 when the sun came in.
Did it work?
And they would have to set up. Yeah, it worked. I had like 2 of them. It didn't look beautiful, but like we ended up getting nicer ones that kind of matched the aesthetic of the store. But like you did what you had to do.
Yeah, that amount of damage is like, I don't think, and that's the funny thing. It's not funny, but that's when it's architects and whatnot that are designing stores. They're not designing for a specific store. So if you're hard goods, it's fine. But if you're putting an apparel store in there, it's like, wow, that's.
Yeah, like it needed an awning or something. I don't know. Like I've just never seen sun damage so bad. Like it was very bad. But so, like going back to like setting up standards. So I'm setting up standards and it's hard when so I'm not managing the store. I'm just doing visuals and I'm helping train staff, I'm cleaning, I'm selling, like I'm doing all these jobs, and it's just so much. And like we know, like in general merchandising, like I had to break it up into a couple days because I just couldn't do it. So we were like busy, which was great, and business was awesome, but it was just too much. So I started bringing more people on to help me and help me, and like you kind of take it with a grain of salt. Like some of these people only work 2 days a week, some work three, and started really training. And I had two girls that were really awesome that I would train and would help me, and I'd explain like, okay, we're going to put this here because of this reason. And they really soaked all of that up.
I love those
And
kids.
oh my God, the best. And then, corporate would come in and they'd be like, oh, the store looks beautiful. It looks great. And I'm like, thank you. Like all that hard work, like that's all I wanted was it looks great. Um, but I don't know, like I said, the whole corporate aspect of retail just kind of got to me in the end, and I couldn't really do it anymore. So I did leave, and now I work for a current company. I'm actually a buyer for Cupcakes and Cashmere. So I
Oh,
do all their home and beauty. I do all their buying for their home and beauty,
very cool.
which is awesome, which I love.
We sell her book in a couple of my stores.
Yeah. Oh, Emily, she's great. But yeah, so I don't know. I still had friends that worked there. And like some of my girls that I taught how to merchandise was like, okay, like I'll go in every couple weeks or go in a month and like kind of see how it's going, because I had my hands on that whole entire store. So I just felt, once again, I felt this draw like it's my store.
Yeah.
Like, and it
Yeah.
wasn't even my store, but I just had that connection because, I was there and I started it, put all the clothing in it, did all the merchandising. Christmas time, I did all the merchandising. Like corporate didn't care about Christmas. And I was like, Christmas is coming. Like we need to decorate for holiday. And they're like, why? It's like,
A lot of corporate, it's funny, a
decorate.
lot of retailers don't believe in it, and I understand it because it's a colossal amount, and it's also,
Yeah,
for those who have a very big Jewish community, it
of
feels like
course.
they're being excluded. But retail, like, you have to have
Yeah.
something that
And we went
feels
because
like the holiday.
when I worked in Larchmont before I moved to LA, I worked at Picket Fences, which there's a big Jewish community around there. We always had a Hanukkah window.
Wait, was
So for
that
Christmas,
Michelle?
it was Joan Pickett.
I had a store in Larchmont. I thought her name was Michelle, but okay, sorry.
I think Michelle owns the baby store.
Um, she's not
Uh,
there anymore. She
oh, okay.
closed, and I thought it was Picket Fences, but
Yeah.
we digress.
Yeah, that's right. But there we did that for holiday because we had that community there. We had a Hanukkah window and we had a Christmas window.
I
So we
love
kind
that.
of like decorated for everybody. But like knowing that and like this community is a lot different. It's a beach town. All I wanted to do was put like some snowflakes up, like nothing saying it's Christmas or
Yeah,
Hanukkah or Kwanzaa, not
Screaming
defining really
Santa.
much. Yeah. 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 But I also love doing stuff like that. But so yeah, so after I left, and I've been with Cupcakes a year, almost a year and a half. And I went in, gosh, not too long ago, and I walk in and just like complete disbelief of like the store's appearance in general. And the girl that was like taking over my spot was very, yeah, like this is great. Like I want to take over. Like I love doing visuals and merchandising and all this stuff. And so I was like, yeah, like you're going to do great. I worked with her and she's a great merchandiser. So like going in, I was kind of like, what's going on? There's literally like coffee rings on the table. Like we had white tabletops. There's coffee rings sitting by like a $200 cashmere sweater. And there's dust, like layers of dust on shelving. There is literally like dust bunnies in the corners underneath like the racks. Like I was like, what is going on? And like even on tabletops, there was like at the very front table as you walk in, there was like a pile of 2 sweaters and like 3 pairs of pants, like the skimpiest looking table.
Is it
And
she
I
has
was
no
like, what is,
support?
yeah, pretty much. And like that was the biggest thing. And I was like, hey, like, talk to me, like what's going on? And that was the big thing. It was like, well, I have so much to do. That's my husband.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I have so much to, she's like, I just have so much to do. She's like, now I understand like why you were running around all the time and you had so much going on. She's like, I just can't do it all in one day. She's like, I'm exhausted.
Well, I
She's
think
like,
that what people don't understand is without any kind of support from whether it be your management or for
Mm,
corporate, it's very difficult to do your job and keep going and keep feeling like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing it. Cause at some point I feel like you're basically giving the message that you don't care. And at some point your employees are not going to care. And it's
yeah.
like that and if there's no one there and that person's supposed to be the one setting the standards, if that person's not setting the standards anymore, it's like,
And no one cares anymore. Yeah.
yep,
Trickles down.
dead flies in the window.
Oh my God, that's the worst. And there was get a lot of termites by the ocean.
Oh.
So there was like termites on the table and like on the floor, like just dead. And I'm like, this is not a good look. And
The dust from the termites, and we get it a lot in gift stores that have
oh, for
wood
sure.
plates and stuff. It's like the dust is, I never see the bug. It's always the dust. And it's like, why aren't we throwing this away?
Yeah.
Why are we still, it's so sad. And it's, I have to wonder, do the district, I mean, I guess because everyone, when you're getting a store visit, so everyone cleans it all
Mhm.
up and it looks
Yeah.
pretty and no one,
Yeah.
oh, it's so sad.
It was just like standards, I was like, well, where's the standards? Like you're supposed to be cleaning every single night underneath here, supposed to be wiping off the countertops. You're supposed to be Windexing. Like what happened? She's like, well, I was the only one doing it. So I kind of stopped doing it too. And I was just like in my head, I'm like, oh my God.
And it's so sad because you care still enough to ask.
Oh yeah. And I literally, that's what my husband, he's like, why do you care? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I just do. I was like, because I know that like it can be so much better and it's not. And like I know what these people are going through and like what they need help with or what they need to do. And I just want the best for them, like,
so I have a question, because I'm sure a lot of stores are like, well, we have that same problem. Like, so what, for a store going through that, what would be your suggestion, as an ex-employee or just as a merchandiser or manager, like what would you suggest on how to wrap their arms around something like this?
I feel like, I don't know. I also feel like the fact that I walked in there and I noticed it and the manager that's running that store didn't know it, there's a problem. And like you were saying, like it's a trickle effect. Like it
Welcome
starts
to
from
Jack
the top.
Surfboards.
Yeah.
Fuck. Don't even get me started on that place, which they'll never obviously be on this podcast, but
it's a trickle. Like if your manager isn't mopping a floor right beside you, that's not going to make you want to do it. Your manager is always sitting on their computer doing God knows what. You feel like, well, why am I doing all the work while they're doing nothing?
Well, have you heard of the phrase, a fish rots from the head?
Yeah.
Like it's literally, if it starts at the management and your manager isn't doing it and bossing all the employees around, expecting them to do it, no one's going to do it.
Yeah.
It's like the fish rots.
It's, to be honest, like I feel like the respect that I got from those employees was, I got more respect when I was there than the management did. You know what I mean? Like I was there and I'm telling, hey, like this isn't right. Let's do this. Or they're like, hey, Alyssa, how do I do this? And they're coming to me and asking me all these questions. I'm like, okay, hold on a second. Like I'm taking care of everything. Like now I'm a manager, a merchandiser, I'm a maid, I'm cleaning, like all these things.
Your mom.
Yeah. And they're all coming to me. And then, then corporate comes in, they're like, wow, everything looks awesome. And then I don't get the credit. This person up here above me gets that credit. And I'm like, but she's not doing anything. So in my opinion, like if things aren't getting done, I feel like it's always from the top. Like not always, but like check your top first and go down.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like even talking to those like part-time employees, like, hey, what's going on? Like kind of sit down and have an actual conversation and talk to them as a human. They'll tell you. They will all rat on each other. I've figured that out. They will all tell on each other.
So do you think the owners should go in and be like, have like we used to do one-on-ones, like, hey, what's happening? I mean,
and I feel like, they always have district managers in corporate that are supposed to come and check on the stores. And like you said, everyone always knows when they're coming. So everyone's always on their best behavior. So I don't feel like they see that. And I think that that's what they need to do. Just do sit downs with some of these, employees that aren't necessarily management and say, well, what's going on in the everyday life. And just kind of see
multiple stores. Do you suggest surprise visits?
Oh my God. I used to do wet seal. I used to surprise my girls all the time with stuff. Or I'd pay or I'd
People are hating me right now.
But to be honest, in a surprise visit, you're not expecting your employees to be completely perfect. Like, they're, here and there, they're probably going to get caught doing something wrong. Like, totally understand that. But like, when it's a learning experience, like for instance, Wet Seal, we had a big theft problem, always had a big theft problem. And I would always tell the girls, like, do not leave your stations. You are here. You are here. Don't go talk to each other. Don't turn your back on the door. Like, these are the things that we need to do. Never turn your back on the door. And I walked by, it was like early before my shift, and I walked by the store and I saw that they were all in the back, just sitting down, talking on a table.
Oh my God.
And I was
welcome
like,
to retail.
I was like, in my head, I'm like, well, I know they probably do this when I'm not here, like shocking. But I walked up and I grabbed a whole entire stack of jeans off that front table and took it with me. And then I came in on my shift and I walked in and, they're all in their spots by then. And I walk in and I go, why is there a big empty hole on the front of this table? And I wasn't even trying to be a jerk. I just wanted them to understand, like, there's a reason that we have you standing up here, because people can come and have come and stolen all this product. And then they got it. I felt shitty after doing it, but I was like, all right, you learned. So
no, I will tell this story because no one has heard this story, because it's like a job that it was like, I hated. So I was there for, I think, a month. I get hired. It was after I closed my stores at Fritz Siegel, and it was before I had signed on to Z Gallery. And there was a district manager job for an outlet company. And Ashley, the DM, was like, okay, we're going to do a road trip and go do, I think it was Gilroy and something else and a couple other outlet stores. And so we go, and she's giving me the breakdown of the stores. And I guess they all obviously have theft problems and blah, blah, blah. So we go, and I'm like, literally just like a day into this, I'm supposed to be I'm not even overnight. I'm like on a road trip to drive with her to go visit these stores. I'm supposed to be going home. We drive in, we go to the store in Gilroy. The girl is nowhere on the floor. Ashley decides to pick up a giant wad of clothes. She walks out. I'm like following her because I have no idea what the fuck is happening. Yeah. And she's like, okay, we're going to go back in. And we go back in and she's like, hello. And the girl comes out, oh, hi, Ashley. And she's like, hi, I just stole this. You're fired. I'm like, what is happening? And so she gets fired, and Ashley's like, okay, now you're going to have to cover the store and get it hired before, and then, I'm like, excuse me? And she's like, I'm going to have to continue on the visits. You're going to have to stay here and man the store with the team, and you're going to need to get somebody hired and trained. I'm like, I'm not even trained. Like, really? And honest to God, like, I had to go buy clothes, and all of a sudden I was staying in some like weird hotel in Gilroy, and like no plan whatsoever. This is where I was supposed to, such a nightmare. But I will tell you though, that was the best lesson ever. I don't think you can legally fire someone like right off the bat with that. Maybe you can, but
I don't know.
I just remember my mouth dropping open, like, say what?
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? I'm staying here? Like,
but it's one of those things. It's like, I don't know how many times I told the girls not to do what they were doing. It's like, I was a broken record at this point. So it's nothing new that they didn't already know that I told them. So like taking that, I felt fine with it. I was like, this is like the final straw. They will listen to me now.
I love that lesson. It's because, I'm trying right now to find loss prevention people, because especially now here in Los Angeles, there's giant, I don't even know what I would do if I was like, they just showed a guy, like there was a street race, and then everyone from the street race came in, like raided this poor gas station manager's store and literally took everything. But by far and large, Los Angeles is becoming where you can go in and steal something and have zero like
repercussions at all.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to have a loss prevention, because I also think a lot of retailers just on a whole don't know what you legally can and can't do. And for Z Gallery and Anthropologie, we would have loss prevention people that came in and gave us like once a month or every other month meetings of like, you can't touch them, you can't say, you can't follow them. There's a reason, because the people that are stealing from you still have a right, and a lot of them will turn around and sue you.
Oh, and
guess what? They win. And it's like, I just reached out to a couple people because I think that that's like so important.
But I think too, that also like kind of comes full circle back to merchandising. Like when I worked at Wet Seal, we would merchandise certain things in certain places because we knew where people were stealing the most. And we'd be like, okay, well, we can't put this here because of that. And we can't, we want to put a glass case here because this is expensive. And like, but yeah, it all kind of comes full circle around. And it's like, it's kind of sad that it's gotten as bad as it has. Like when I was in Larchmont working at Picket Fences, we had a lot of theft, and it doesn't matter like if you're rich or poor. Like,
no, it's always a lot of the times it's the richest kids. Like,
yeah,
I mean, in Malibu, it's like, I forget what store I was at, but like, it was crazy. These girls were driving Range Rovers and would shoplift. And it's like, really? Like,
and
I think it's just the thrill of it.
Yeah. And like, we would just call them out. Like we'd walk up to them and be like, you stole that shirt. But that was all we could do. Like, I couldn't really do anything. Like, I don't want to get hurt.
Legally, I don't even know if you can legally even say that.
I don't know either.
Anthro, and this is one of the things I tell my retailers, because Rock Paradise is like, they're down the street from a high school. Crystals are all this big. Those little shits.
We sold Rock Paradise at Picket Fences. We had a lot of little children stealing rocks.
So those kids, like, don't care. And like, like they've gotten to the point where they were really smart. They got the stock guy got a vest that says security on it. So they have walkie talkies now, and they'll say, can we have security out to section 1 or whatever? And Tony puts on his vest and out there, and it's like, but they're not doing that now. But I said to them, one of the best things that Anthro taught us was, say you saw somebody steal a pink beret, and it was going up to them like, oh, did you see this pink top? Pink would look so good on you. Pink, 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 where literally the person knows, they took something pink, and they would eventually leave it somewhere in the store. But that was the only. That's the only,
even just to get them out of your store. Like, it's like the longer they're in there, the more they're going to sell or steal stuff. So it's like, any way you can just get them out.
That's the loss prevention thing, is one of the things I really want to have somebody on. Okay. So I want to ask you, because I had no idea, Cupcakes and Cashmere. So tell me about your job with them, because I love that company.
Oh, I love this company as well. But they're, after coming from Brixton corporate retail once again, I was like, I'm not doing that once again. So I came across the listing for there, and I was like, okay, they literally have like a staff of 8 people, and they run this whole entire company. So when I interviewed with them, my boss, she is amazing as well. And she worked retail for a really long time too. So her and I on my interview just totally kicked it off, because we understood, like, we understood each other. We understood like the importance of, retail in the stores, and like product, and how important product knowledge was, and things like that. So I think our interview was like 2 hours. Like, who has a 2-hour interview? But
love that.
But yeah, so I've been working there. I do, I source all their home decor and their beauty. And candles as well. So we have a bunch of candles and stuff, but everything's kind of based on Emily. So I don't know if your listeners know, but Emily started out as a blogger. So now she's kind of like a social media influencer, and she has a big following.
It's like the OG of influencers.
Yeah, she's literally like the official, like, in my opinion, like one of the first bloggers, and one of the first bloggers turned social media influencers. So Cupcakes and Cashmere was her blog, and now it's an online resale. We sell jewelry as well. So it's kind of like a lifestyle brand. So we kind of curate like Emily's favorites, and that's how we promote them. And it's a lot of fun.
Who are some of your favorite lines?
Well, we sell a ton of candles. So I love Bohème. I love Rowan. I love Salt and Stone.
I haven't smelled Salt and Stones. I've only seen their facial line.
So good. So good. What else? We actually produce our own stuff as well. So we'll work with like local artists. We have a bunch of ceramics that we've just worked with a girl out of Nevada, and we had custom little olive dishes made. We've had like spoon rests and things made, like just based on Emily's style and like what she wants. So everything goes through her. So genuinely everything on our website is something that she loves.
Which is why it's so curated, because she still has her hands in it. And I think that a lot of times that, when you get so big, other people are making the decisions and you aren't as involved in it. And it loses that sense of who that person is. And suddenly it's not it's not that person anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, in the team, we're all so close. Like we have meetings weekly, you know, Emily's always there. Emily's husband's the VP. So he's always there. It's just like a little nice niche community. And we all, you know, everyone just has like their roles and everyone works from home. So everyone just has their roles and everyone works together to get everything done. Like it just is so smooth. I don't even know. Like it's literally, you know, marketing does their thing, we buy our stuff, and then the shipping and warehouse people do their stuff. Like, and it's just completely seamless.
Are
It's
you
great.
are you doing the gift shows, or are you doing everything online?
We do a lot online. I did go to which one did I go to recently? We went to the spring show at the Mart.
At LA Mart?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It was so sad.
I know. It's so sad. I've been there. I was there in its heyday when the whole
Yeah.
building was full, and it's so, thank God Karen Arwal and Steven are
Mm,
so big that you can go and spend an entire day,
yeah. Just looking at theirs.
there,
Yeah.
because there's enough. But it's like, it's sad because, in its day, that building, I mean, I still work for Steven. I've been with
Yeah.
Steven forever, but it's like, I used to do the displays, and that we were so big, like all the floors were full.
Yeah.
Like we were doing displays in the lobby, all the elevator
Yeah.
bays, and it's like slowly, slowly, slowly. And I didn't realize that the demise of when that building started to go down. I interviewed Matt from Fine Lines. They just
Mhm.
moved out this January, and he was saying that it really started to slide when the LA riots happened. And I didn't realize that's
Interesting.
when, and I guess that it felt LA didn't feel as safe anymore. And that's
Mhm.
kind of when it started going downhill. And granted, the LA riots were a long time ago, but
Yeah.
it's so that, but it's,
I would say now I would describe it as desolate.
yeah, I mean,
It's like one floor. Like
it's,
Stephen Young is like the best showroom there for
yeah,
sure. And was always a good one. But yeah, like
it's very odd going there,
yeah.
because I mean, like I said, like thank God it's big enough that you could spend the day,
Yeah.
and they all order luncheon for you, so it's not like you
Yeah.
have to go. But did you do Vegas? Have you done Vegas?
I haven't done Vegas. Our jewelry buyer goes to Vegas a lot for the jewelry show. I went to a brand assembly one here in LA. That one was pretty good. I like to go to the smaller stuff. I do a lot of craft fairs just because like we're so small and niche. Like
Yeah.
we want something that nobody else has.
Yeah.
And that's where we want to start. So that's where I found my ceramicists and things like that. So if I can make connections with people that way, I do it that way. I search a lot on social media, obviously being a millennial. And I do use a lot of the online resources like Fair and Bulletin. Bulletin.
How do you like Bulletin, by the way? Because I don't think a lot of retailers, I'm trying to get them on here. They had Bulletin Pavilion at New York Now. A lot of West Coast retailers don't do New York Now, but how do you like Bulletin? Because it's very different than Fair.
It is. I don't use it as much as Fair. There is a lot of crossover, but I just feel like Fair just has more options.
Yeah.
But I feel like the options on Bulletin are genuine. Like there are good ones. You just have to dig a little further.
Yeah.
So
It's
I don't
very
know.
curated. I feel like
It's very curated.
And it's like Fair. God love Fair. I mean, there's some great
Yeah.
things on Fair, but it's not as vetted anymore, and it's not
yeah.
curated anymore. But it
Or
is
like Shop Object is very curated as
I love
well.
that show.
I love
I love that show.
It's so good. But no, Cupcakes and Cashmere actually just launched our own candle brand called Lavoon. So if you want to check it out, it's just lavoon.com. But we are going to be in Dallas. So it's the first time I'm actually going to the Dallas
How do you spell
trade
it?
show. Lavune. Oh, and I can't hands down, like the smells are immaculate. We have 3 up right now, and we had a holiday collection. Like they're good. They're very, very good.
Are they going to be repped by somebody in Dallas?
No. So myself and one other girl we've designed our own booth, and we're going to it's just going to be the 2 of us going to sell.
Because
like I said, oh my gosh. So like I said, we're a small company, so everyone's, jumping in to help out. So,
I feel for you setting up a trade show. That's a
so
whole other ball of wax.
yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure, for sure. But I'm stoked to go to Dallas because I had never been and I heard it's huge.
It's
So
amazing. It's a great show.
I'm
I mean,
very excited.
we've had Cole on here who's head of marketing, and it is the one gift building that is 90% full from what I
Yeah.
understand. And that obviously from LA Mart, that says
Sure.
a lot.
Well, I know, like after LA Mart last week, I was like, oh my God. First off,
Oh.
sadly, I don't want to say I'm never going back to LA Mart, but like it's just not really worth it at the time.
I
But
mean, if you buy from Steven and
yeah,
Karen, I mean, those lines, and especially if you're not doing Vegas, it's worth it for sure. Cause it's,
yeah.
beautiful and it's still eye candy. But, yeah, for me, it was always hard because I go to shows to find newness and lines that no one else has. And
Yeah.
I tend to find them at bigger shows. So Cupcakes and Cashmere is coming up their own wholesale line. This is amazing. I'm going to make sure we have a link in here so that people, so it's debuting in.
Yeah, we just launched our actual website in January. So in June, we're going to be at the Home and Gift Show in Dallas.
That is
I'm
exciting.
excited.
I didn't even expect this kind of announcement. That's
Oh,
amazing.
yeah, right.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have two more questions for you because we've gone way over an
Oh,
hour.
of course. Yeah.
Which I had a feeling it was Elisa said who books everything. She's like, she's going to
We're
be.
retail girls. Come on.
Elisa's like, Elisa, when she sent me over your information, she's like, she's going to be your new best friend. I'm telling you. Right now. I always ask creative people, where do you find inspiration?
Honestly, I find most of my inspiration from my surroundings. Like, I feel like just opening your eyes and looking at things. I feel like with technology and, computer access, like people like will Google stuff to try to find inspiration. But I just feel like just going out there or like even go to like swap meets and like see what the younger kids are wearing or like what they're buying.
Yeah.
Or, just walking around your neighborhood and kind of seeing like what the shops carry. Like I like to physically get out and just go look. Like I feel like you can go on Fair and you can go on Bullet and see what's trending and what they're selling, but it's just different to get out there and just see it for yourself.
Yeah. And then my last question is, what piece of advice would you give to retailers regarding merchandising and keeping up the standards in their own store?
Have standards. I think making lists of standards and just checking in on those standards. So like, as someone that owns a store, you have a manager that manages that store and everyone has their standards and their cleaning list. It's good to just go in and check every once in a while just to make sure it's being done.
Oh my God, you're speaking my love language.
Do a stock check, grab a sweater off of a table and scan it. And if it says you have 5 smalls and there's no small in that stack, like, just do a couple of those a day and kind of see where you're at. And that really snaps it in. Like, when I worked at Picket Fences, Joan would come out and she owned the store and she would help a customer and she'd be helping a customer. She's like, hey, Alyssa, I don't see a small in here. And I'd be like, oh, I don't know if we have any. And then I'd check the inventory and I go, oh, we have a small. Like in my head, knowing I didn't sell a small today, so it didn't get stocked. And to me as an employee, I was like, dang, like I let her down. So like, so it's like when your management or like someone that owns your store, and she was never mad. She's like, oh no, it's okay. But it just, when you care about your store and like they care about you and what's going on and everyone's caring, like that's what's going to make it better. So if the retails, just check in.
I call that follow up. Like I always say, because I used to leave, or even in my stores, like we'd leave lists of things to do. And I think it's very easy. Like a lot of kids will just like, oh yeah, did it, scratch it off the list. And I think a lot of owners and a lot of managers never go and look and see if what was scratched off from the list was actually done. They just take it for and it's like, it's been scratched off, so it's been done. And it's like that. It's like follow up is always like my number one. So I love that you just said that.
Because in reality, like no one loves restocking. So sometimes people that hate doing it the most, like check up on them to make sure that they've actually followed through. Because if you never do, they'll never fully follow through. They'll always just half-ass it because they know they can get away with it.
Speaking my love language. Thank you so much for your time. I love these kind of conversations. And it's like I said, like you sent us an email and it was like, Elisa forwarded it to me, and because I don't have access to the, I'm
Mhm.
not allowed to have access to the website because they're too afraid I'm going to screw it up. But she
Hey,
said
you know your
something, I was like,
strengths.
I mean, it was so refreshing to read that. And it was like, okay, I was like, let's jump on a call and touch base and see if it, and after your email, I'm like, I don't need to jump on a call with her. I can
Yeah,
already tell. So thank you so much for your
of
email, and thank you
course.
for listening to us, and thank you for your time here. And I'm so excited to have people hear about the new Cupcakes wholesale line.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely great meeting you. And I'm a huge fan, so I listen to your podcast every
Thanks.
day. So
Thank you. Do you want to give anybody your handles on where they can find you? Are you active in your
I'm not a
Instagram?
huge social media gal, to be
Mhm.
honest. I know, which is weird for a millennial. So
Well,
yeah,
we'll put the link in for the website. Can you send me the information on the cupcakes and candle? Because it'd be great to be
yeah,
able to
yeah.
like look
I'll send
at for
cupcakes
you
and
guys.
the Lagoon stuff for you too.
That'd be perfect.
All
Thank
right,
you. Thank
cool.
you.
You're welcome, Michelle.